Well, our first knockout tie, and it didn't disappoint. Switzerland comfortably beating Italy 2-0, knocking the holders out of the competition. And you can't say it wasn't deserved. And I spoke prior to this tournament, when I spoke about Italy, about the fact that they were going to be an entertaining team. And I think some people sort of misunderstood what I was saying. And to be fair, I probably didn't speak with the utmost clarity on what I meant by that. And that is that Italy are going to be entertaining from an attacking point of view, because they did try and play some really good technical football at points. You didn't see it at all during the Switzerland game. Switzerland were very much the dominant side. But there were flashes of the quality that they possess. And even when you look at that technical midfield, with Fagioli, with Barella, with Cristante, Jorginho's come in to play for Frattesi. Some really good technical players. Mancini and Bastoni and Calafiori, who couldn't play in this match due to a suspension. Fantastic on the ball and are capable of playing good football. And they did at points. They didn't do it as consistently as I was expecting coming into the tournament. But where they were going to entertain is because as good as they could have been on the ball, I thought there were some severe warning signs in the games prior to the tournament, in the warm-up friendlies, of their off-the-ball shape, which looked so bad. And you look at the Switzerland game specifically, that off-the-ball shape was dreadful. And how Switzerland exploited it, it was made to be exploited. And I'm not just going to blame tactically why that didn't work, because there were tactical issues, and Spalletti did get it wrong. Despite every Twitter tactico trying to tell you that Italy were transformative coming into this tournament and how amazing they were, which is why you should never listen to Twitter tacticos. Just because you articulate yourself well and you speak with a certain amount of detail doesn't mean what you're saying has any real value to it whatsoever. EBL, I'm looking at you talking tactics. I'm taking you all on. Yeah, lick that. But there were some severe issues coming into the tournament with their off-the-ball shape. But the body language of the players and in the overall performance of them was really worrying. Really, really worrying. I don't know if there's some discontent in the Italian camp that I've just not been made aware of. But I couldn't believe the levels that some of these players, some really good players in the squad, have dropped to. But enough of that riff-raff. I'm going to go into the game. And first we're going to talk about Switzerland on the ball. This shape is a lot more further along than I generally do. I generally do the build-up shape for the team and then the more attacking state. But Italy's lack of press meant that Switzerland got to this stage very quickly and very easily. There was a real poor attempt at pressing. I do believe they tried to go man-to-man with Cristante and Barella on the deeper players, with the wide players coming around to the wide centre-backs and Rodriguez and Cher and Scamacca and Akanji. But a very, very poor press meant that Switzerland got into these stages of play very easily. And one thing you're going to notice when you look at this Italy shape, and this is my biggest gripe, and if you watched my Italy video before the tournament started, you will know exactly what it is. Now, before we had Jorginho playing this role, this time we had Fagioli dealing in so much space in between the lines. The gaps between the midfield and defence were horrific from an Italian point of view. The amount of space they left Fagioli in against a team that operate with players in these wider 10 positions was absurd. And Switzerland knew it. You can tell that Switzerland were a very well-prepared team, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, I'll actually go over another issue I think that this Italian team showed. Quite narrow in their shape. Really narrow. I'm going to push this in. If anything, I've left them far too spread. Switzerland adapted to this in many ways. One was through the rotations of positions, and there's several of these to cover right now. One of which that we've seen throughout the tournament is Abashir coming into this position here. This guy's having a fantastic tournament, by the way. And Vargas coming out into this left-hand side, which typically you saw more of. They would be very comfortable swapping positions and exchanging. Abashir, especially from the deeper build-up phases, would offer that extra man to outnumber the Italy press and be able to get the ball up the pitch quickly, especially by moving it out wide and playing it around Italy's narrow shape. So that was one. You'd have similar on the other side with Rieder and Doi coming inside and one playing in the half space. And another rotation, and this was what really crippled Italy here, and that is through Xhaka and Freuler. You'd see one of two things or both. So Rodriguez typically stuck up into this left-hand side as a more orthodox left-back. So it left a little bit of an isometric 2-1-2, if you will. But that's fine. It meant Shah would naturally come out into this area anyway, so it was just a little bit sort of lopsided. And where this Swiss shape would take shape is through one of two ways, as I just said, is Xhaka moving into this area here to increase the numerical superiority in those deeper phases, pushing Akanji across and pushing Schär to create a very wide back four split. And you know how I feel about wide build-ups. I love them. They're essential, I think, in the modern game to going through an opposition's press. And with how narrow Italy were, a few passes and they were able to play round into these half spaces. Another way they did that was Freuler making movements into this area here, because when Scamacca would go to press, the two centre midfielders in Cristante and Barella would join up, only Fagioli outnumbered, and having Freuler in there to outnumber them, and there were so many easy passes that just went through the lines into these areas. Aebischer that then played out to Vargas, Freuler making third man runs as this happened, and Italy just could not cope. Embolo did a fantastic job, by the way, of dropping deep in occasion when Freuler wasn't overly committed to that attacking phase, increasing that numerical superiority and leaving Fagioli with so many men to mark and coming out to help link up play, or getting up against his centre-back, whether that be Mancini or Bastoni, and bodying him and allowing more free-flowing attacking football from these players. The fact they didn't have a player to sort of take care of Xhaka, who would move from that central centre-back role into moving up the field as well, allowing Freuler to really attack this area, with no real pressure from the likes of Cristante or Barella, and he was able to play passes for fun, play it in between the line. He had control of that game from minute 1 to minute end. And Granit Xhaka has been my player of the tournament so far. It is also worth noting that I thought Akanji and the way he played balls into these areas as well was fantastic. Real top draw from those two. Those two were in my team of the season so far, Akanji and Xhaka. And that game executed why fantastic in defence as they were in the attacking sense. But I will go over how Italy tried to attack the game, which didn't happen a lot. So Italy would try and play out in their sort of 4-3-3, I guess you can say, a 2-3-2-3. The front players weren't stretching that back three as much as possible. They were keeping it fairly narrow, sort of trying to find space either side of Cristante and Barella. And Switzerland would press high. They'd press in a man-to-man fashion. They'd be aggressive. They'd be intent with it. Just really trying to force turnovers, which they did a few times, force the Italians to making silly mistakes and giving the ball away. And they did win a number of fouls from these actions as well, by winning the ball and then causing the Italy player that they'd stolen it off of to react and hack them down as they were trying to get away from them. It was just so fantastically implemented, and you can see the hours and the work that has been used in the training pitch with this. And I will say, sometimes I think it helps where those players come from. And you look at that midfield three especially. I know Aebischer was a hybrid left wing back and a midfielder. Aebischer and Freuler, both from Bologna, which have proven to be such a tactically impressive team. Xhaka in his season at Bayer Leverkusen. Sometimes you get bits of luck with international football, and the fact that the teams they play for are so tactically intelligent, and you need players that can match that in order for it to perform at a high level, helps highly. Akanji at City, Schär is used to playing a high line with Newcastle. I don't know enough about the likes of Vargas and Rieder and Ndoye, but have all had impressive tournaments and are all sort of high-tempo, fast-paced players that can exploit space in behind and stretch that back line back is key. They really did stick to their guns, stick to their mark as well, and as a result, Italy very rarely got chances to play through. The only few times it did happen was if Fagioli got a little bit of room and he was able to beat the press, which he did do a couple of times. He's fantastic in terms of his press-resistant passing, Fagioli, and is a player that deserved better this entire tournament, really. And so they did get up the field a couple of times, a little bit more in the second half, where Switzerland were 2-0 up and the game was won and they were conserving their energy. But even when Switzerland had that, they still coped with it brilliantly, as I'm going to show now. So when Italy would be in their main attacking phase, it would be similar to how they were in their build-up, 2-3-2-3. You'd have Di Lorenzo exchanging places with Cristante or Barella on this side, with him moving into the half space and one of them dropping deeper to use their passing ranges, especially Cristante. I think he's got a better range to his passing to try and affect the game from these deeper areas, playing it in between the lines and trying to carve open Switzerland's shape. Didn't happen enough, and he really didn't create anything substantial from these areas. They'd also contribute to overloads as well. Let's say if Di Lorenzo moved into this position to allow Chiesa to move inside, which meant Cristante operating more centrally within this area. Mancini would move across Bastoni, Darmian, and it would turn into a 3-1 with the 6 in between. But they didn't really get any joy because of what Switzerland did, which Italy did not. Reduce that space in between defence and midfield, excellent. When Switzerland settled into their shape, they settled and restricted Italy. The wide centre-backs would take care of players in the half spaces. They'd be disciplined. Xhaka and Freuler would manage the space in between as well and manage passing lanes into the attacking players from the deeper areas. Italy didn't really move these wide centre-backs into these areas enough either to try and commit men, which feels like a bit of a wasted opportunity. That's sometimes how you can break an opposition shape, by getting a man to rush in from deep that there's clearly no set up to mark in the defensive structure from the opposition. You never really saw that, and as a result Switzerland defended in a low block well, they defended in their high press, and it was just such a complete performance from Switzerland. Italy, attacking wise, poor. Chiesa, Scamacca, I thought such an anonymous performance from players that should be able to produce better on the international stage. But I'm going to highlight the 2 goals now. Okay, so for the first goal, which was in the middle of the first half, a couple of issues. Again, that midfield press as I've spoken about, with Fagioli, as you can see right here, isolated in the middle of the pitch, just to the left of Mbolo. I probably should have marked a few players here. Wide players tucked in without really performing any role, and the centre midfielders caught up with the striker. Akanji sees this gap between players, and Mbolo peels off his man who he was pinning and drops into space, as I was speaking about before, doing both roles really well to receive the pass from Akanji. Fantastic ball from Akanji, splits the entire Italy defence open with one foul swoop. And Mbolo then links up with Odoi, who's making the horizontal run from the right-hand side into Switzerland's left, and as a result now Mancini and Bastoni are all over the place. They're tracked with the men they're marking, they're just reacting to the players moving into space. Di Lorenzo sees this and he goes to cover. The movement of Ndoi and the link up from him and Mbolo means that Ndoi's now facing Vargas, who's making that run on the outside of Di Lorenzo, as you can see here, completely taking advantage of Italy's disjointed shape. So the ball then comes to Vargas on the left-hand side, and Ndoi continues his run and overlaps, and as you can see here, Di Lorenzo and Bastoni, they're both pointing to the right. There's no real communication, they're both just kind of reacting to the man. No support from the midfield either, by the way, and as a result, the gap between Bastoni and Mancini is massive. Horrific recovery runs from the midfielders. The only one who puts on a slight bit of effort, again, is Fagioli, but not enough. And Freuler sees this. Freuler making those sort of third-man runs all game, as I was speaking about before, sees the space. He's a tactically intelligent player. He knows where the space is. When the disjointed shape of Italy gives him that free rein, pass goes into him, undetected. Fagioli can't get there quick enough, and he doesn't even take a great touch to settle himself, but finds his opportunity to score and does it brilliantly. Fantastic from Switzerland, but so poor from Italy. How easily they allowed themselves to become disjointed and separated, and how poorly they recover with no help from the midfield. And I can't go on about that midfield enough, but that's first goal, poor. And when I'm talking about this goal, there's something I'm going to point out prior to that first goal, so if you just bear with me. So we're going to go over a kick-off for Italy that led to the second goal. But this is the kick-off at the very start of the game. Now, this may not bear a bit of relevance to... But I saw it live, I noticed it live, and I think it's worth speaking about here. Now, this is Italy from the Switzerland goal kick. So, start of the game, and we know how teams kick off. They send it back to the defence, who'll knock it long and try and force the ball up the pitch to get it just up for a throw-in, or just create a moment in the opposition's third from the get-go. This is about 10 seconds in now. It's gone back to the centre-back. He's played a 1-2 with his wide centre-back. I think that's Schär on the ball. If I just compare these two pictures, there's not a lot of change, is there? That ball's moved between 3 or 4 Switzerland players, and Italy are still stuck in the mud. Like, that's the very start of the game in a Euros knockout tie. That is inexcusable for me from top-level footballers. And does this bear any relevance to the second goal? Not really, but it shows that something isn't right. That this is something that you can't even necessarily blame tactics for. This is basics of football, and Italy are still stagnant, still stuck in their position, and it almost looks like it takes Switzerland by surprise when you watch this live, because they're almost taking the touch thinking, is the press going to come? Okay, it's not going to come. I guess we'll just engage in our attacking play from this point, which you never really see teams do from kickoff. So just keep that in mind when we go over to the second goal for Switzerland. So there's this weird kickoff routine that they tried to engage in from the start of the second half. Fagioli plays it back to the player on the ball now, and 5 players look to break lines and get in behind, and clearly with a favour on the right hand side, that's where you assume the ball is going. So Fagioli takes the kickoff, plays it back, he goes then back to receive the ball, hits a horrific pass that finds Xhaka and Xhaka only. So that's 5 Italian players, a good 5 to 10 yards behind Xhaka now. So that's one thing. Whatever this plan was to get Fagioli on the ball to then hit a reverse pass over about 40 yards, was a silly idea to begin. Whether that's the plan or Fagioli's just rushed it and panicked, I don't know. So he makes a mistake there, Fagioli, but where I have a little bit more sympathy for him, if we move this on, is... So Xhaka's now played the ball to Vargas on that left-hand side. He's got Abishir running beyond him, and Fagioli's had to sprint back to try and get back in and cover and rectify his mistake, which happens. That happens in a football game. But you can see the attack building up from a Switzerland point of view. The ball then gets played to Abishir. Fagioli leaves Vargas to then track that run. Panicking, as you can see, Abishir has no choice but to turn back and play it to Vargas. And now Fagioli's done his bit here. He's rectified his mistake. He's gotten back to try and cover the man. Barella now comes over. Now you think Barella's job here is to take care of Vargas. That should be his man to cover. No issues here. The ball's gone to Vargas, who's then played it to Xhaka. You see Fagioli now, he's moved up and he's trying to press Xhaka. Barella is in an upright position. He's not moved from that last bit. The ball's gone to Vargas and then it's gone to Xhaka, and he's not made an attempt to play for the ball. Vargas has then moved beyond, or not beyond, but behind Barella into the half space, which, as you can see, is exposed as anything. Xhaka's collecting the ball. Fagioli's reacted to try and press Xhaka. Xhaka then plays the ball to Abishir. Again, Fagioli, trying to rectify his mistake, has gone over to press Abishir. A one-man pressing machine at points, because as you can see now, Vargas has made the movement into the half space, and Barella is nowhere. Barella may as well not even have moved. I'm not even 100% sure he has. Who then picks up the ball? Vargas in acres of space. Cristante then makes a movement over towards him reactively, and it's a fantastic finish, taking nothing away from it. Vargas, who puts it right in top bins, an unreal goal, fully deserved. But I'm not having it from Barella. Barella has been one of the best box-to-box midfielders in the world over the last 4 to 5 years. Fagioli's a young kid that made a mistake. Fagioli tried desperately to rectify his mistake. He needed help from his more than experienced teammate who's played in Champions League finals. He's won competitions. He's been at the top. He's won this competition himself. He should be doing better. He was anonymous in this game. It was the worst performance I think I've ever seen him have. Statuesque, I think, wouldn't be harsh to describe his performance within this game. And Fagioli got a bit too hung out to dry. Did he have a good game, Fagioli? Did he help himself? Of course not. But he's a young player. He's going to make immature mistakes like that. But he tried to rectify it and wasn't given any help by his more experienced teammates. Not good enough from an Italian point of view. And surely there has to be a level of introspection from the coach, from the Italian FA, about why this was so bad, this game. But take nothing away from the Switzerland. The tactical level of them is going to be a threat to any team this tournament. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Cheers for watching, lads. In a bit.